You're impossible. So we used your reserves for the festival, my sister texted. Dad added, she's exceptional. I said nothing. Then an alert popped up. $11,900 was gone. At the festival, my nephew shouted, thanks for the retreat, Aunt Liza. I calmly revoked their access. The next day, a cake arrived with a message. I was setting up a flight path for a new long-range drone client when my phone buzzed on the counter. One message. From my sister, Liza. You're impossible. We used your reserves for the festival. That was it. No greeting. No explanation. I blinked at the screen, rereading it like the meaning might change. What reserves? Then a second message arrived. This time from my dad. She deserved it. She's exceptional. No context. Just dismissal. I froze. I opened my financial dashboard, the one linked to my drone business account. The same account I'd been building for over a year. My import fund, set aside specifically for high-end drone parts from overseas, was lighter. Way lighter. $11,900 lighter. My mouth went dry. That fund was supposed to cover the new batch of mount adapters, LiPo batteries, and motors I had negotiated on a bulk deal last spring. Every dollar had been earned from side gigs, night flights, weddings, roof inspections, whatever it took. Gone. I barely had time to process it when the festival noise outside my workshop hit a crescendo. Music, kids running, the smell of kettle corn drifting in. The whole neighborhood was celebrating at the field by the community center. My cousin Ivy's dance troupe was doing a special showcase. Out of curiosity, maybe some part of me just needing to see them, I walked over, hands in my pockets, shoulders tight. The sun was setting behind the mountaintop ridge, casting everything in this surreal, golden haze. Ivy stood in the center stage, spinning in a sequined bodysuit while the crowd cheered. She bowed. Then, like some cosmic punchline, her nephew, my nephew too, grabbed the mic and shouted with all the innocent pride of a 7-year-old, thanks for the mountaintop retreat, Aunt Liza. My body went cold. They had used my business savings for a luxury retreat? For Ivy's troupe? I didn't say a word. I didn't walk up to the stage. I didn't even blink. I turned around, pulled out my phone, opened the business account permissions, and scrolled to the shared access list. Family, Liza Turner, James Turner, Clara Turner. I hit revoke access on all three. The pop-up asked me to confirm. I pressed yes. A second later, it was done. The damage couldn't be undone, but the doorway was closed. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked away as the music swelled behind me. I'd spent my whole life bailing them out. This time, they went too far. The next morning, I called a bakery in town. Not just any bakery, the fancy one that did fondant sculptures and charged like you were ordering wedding cakes made of gold. I told them exactly what I wanted. 3-tiered, drone-themed, silver and matte black. Top tier should be a DJI Match Rice replica, propellers and all. And I want it delivered to 318 Hazelwood Drive. The girl on the phone laughed. That's very specific. Oh, and one more thing, I said, pausing. Write this across the middle tier in red icing. Business closed. Access denied. There was silence on the line. Sir, she asked, like she wanted to make sure she'd heard me right. I confirmed it, and I paid up front. I didn't expect a reaction right away. I knew my family. Silence was their first move, a kind of tactical regrouping. Liza would pretend not to be bothered. Dad would say it's just money. Mom would do that thing where she tilts her head and calls me sensitive. But I also knew what would come next. 2 days later, it hit. I got the first text from my mother. How dare you? We're family. I didn't respond. The second came an hour later. Your sister was crying. Is that what you wanted? Then the calls started. Blocked, unblocked, voicemails, hang-ups. All with that same frantic energy, accusations masked as concern. I turned my phone on silent and went back to work soldering a transmitter. I wasn't giving them another piece of me. Not this time. That evening, I pulled into my driveway after a long field test. My house sat quiet under the dusky light. I just started unloading my gear when I saw them, 3 figures standing by my porch. Dad, Mom, Liza. They didn't wave. They didn't smile. Just waited. I considered turning around and going right back to the road. But I didn't. I walked toward them slowly, drone case in one hand, keys in the other. Vincent, my mom said, stepping forward first. We need to talk. Is this about the cake? I asked, voice flat. She blinked. That was petty. And cruel. Not as cruel as stealing from your own son, I said. My tone didn't rise. I was tired, and it showed. Liza spoke next. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, I said. You drained my account. That's not a proportion thing. That's a math thing. Dad finally stepped forward, arms crossed. You've always been dramatic, Vincent. You think cutting us off makes you a hero? You're just throwing a tantrum. I stared at him. You stole nearly 12 grand, Dad. For your cousin, he snapped. She's gifted. That retreat was an opportunity. And what was my business? I asked. A hobby? A backup wallet? He didn't answer. My hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. From the cold clarity of knowing I'd never get an apology. I'm done, I said. I turned my back on them and walked up the steps. You're choosing drones over your family, my mom called out. I unlocked the door, pushed it open, and paused. No, I said over my shoulder. I'm choosing myself. And then I shut the door in their faces. I didn't hear from them for a couple of days. Not directly, anyway. But I knew they weren't done. That silence, they used it like a weapon. Like I'd somehow wander back to them, full of guilt and regret. Like I was the one who needed to apologize. Then Saturday morning rolled around. I'd just come back from an early job, a roof inspection for a real estate agent in town. I was unloading my drone bag from the trunk when I saw their car parked across the street. Not moving. Just watching. I ignored it. Walked to my door. Fumbled with my keys. Then I heard the doors slam. Footsteps. I turned. They were walking straight toward me, Mom, Dad, and Liza. Again. But this time they looked different. More prepared. Like they'd rehearsed something. Liza spoke first. We need to talk. In person. You've been doing a lot of that lately, I said. But not much listening. We're not here to fight, Mom cut in. Her eyes were already glossy. We just want to fix this before it gets worse. I set my bag down on the driveway. It's already worse, I said quietly. Dad stepped forward. You're being ridiculous. This was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding is borrowing $5 and forgetting to say something, I shot back. This was calculated. You went into my business account and emptied it for a dance retreat. Mom's tears came faster. It was for Ivy. She's been working so hard. I've been working hard, I said, pointing at myself. I've been flying every weekend, night gigs, corporate mapping, weddings in the rain, hauling batteries at 3 a.m., all for that fund. You're not even married, Dad scoffed. No kids. What do you need all that money for? The air went cold. I stared at him. So because I'm single, I don't deserve to keep what I earn? You don't need as much, he said, shrugging. Family comes first. Family comes first, I repeated slowly. Unless I'm the one asking for something. Then suddenly it's about sacrifices and how ungrateful I am. Liza's arms were crossed. She hadn't said much since they showed up, but now she stepped forward. You've always held money over our heads, she said. You think because you pay for things, it gives you the right to judge us? I laughed. No, I think because I pay for things, I get the right to stop when I've had enough. She blinked. I've bailed you out how many times? I continued. Rent, car trouble, credit cards, every single time, I came through. And none of you ever asked if I was okay. If I could afford it. You just assumed. Mom wiped her eyes. You're stubborn, Vincent. Always have been. No, I said. I've just finally stopped confusing guilt for love. They stared at me. Silent. I picked up my bag and walked to the door. Before I could unlock it, Dad muttered, you'll regret this. I paused. Didn't turn around. No, I said. You will. Then I walked inside. That night, around 11:30, I got a security alert from my bank. Someone had tried to reset my business account password. I spent the next hour locking everything down, changing logins, setting up two-factor authentication, removing linked devices. Every access point sealed. Whatever they thought they could still reach, they couldn't anymore. The vendor fair was a big deal in our town, tents lining Main Street, booths packed with local businesses, food trucks parked at every corner. I'd reserved a spot months ago to demo my latest surveillance drone model. It was sleek, fast, and already generating interest with local contractors. I arrived early to set up. The morning air was crisp, sunlight bouncing off polished canopies and colorful banners. I parked the drone case behind my table and flipped the display monitor on. Everything felt normal, like maybe this day could just be about work. But then I saw them. My mother, striding through the crowd in a pink windbreaker, lips pressed tight like she was preparing for a sermon. My dad followed a few steps behind, arms folded, eyes scanning for familiar faces. And Liza? She was already talking to someone, Mrs. Keeley, from the real estate office, gesturing back toward my booth. I knew that look, that fake concern mixed with self-righteousness. It was the same one she wore every time she explained me to people. I stayed calm, checked my equipment, booted up the drone interface. They approached fast. No hesitation. Vincent, my mom said, loud enough to draw attention. We need to talk. Now. I'm working, I said without looking up. But she wasn't backing off. You're really okay with humiliating your family? After everything we've done for you? That got a few heads turning. Some old family friends were nearby, sipping lemonade and pretending not to eavesdrop. But I saw their eyebrows raise. My dad stepped closer. You made a scene, son. You embarrassed your sister. You're putting money before blood. I looked up. Money before blood? I said, loud and even. You mean the money you took from my business account without asking? That blood. There was a ripple in the crowd. People pretending to shop nearby were now squarely focused on us. Liza tried to cut in. It wasn't like that. You make it sound like. It was like that, I said. You stole almost 12 grand. For a dance retreat. From a business I built from scratch. Don't do this here, Mom hissed. This isn't the place. You picked the place, I said, voice steady. You came to my booth. During my event. In front of my clients. More people were listening now. A couple leaned closer. I turned slightly toward the crowd, addressing them without fully facing them. Just so we're clear, I said. They stole from me. Then called me selfish when I cut them off. And now they're trying to spin the story. That's the kind of family I have. My mom's mouth opened, then closed. Dad took a step back. And Liza? She turned red. Fully, visibly red. I turned back to my drone. Flipped the switch. Demo starts in 2 minutes, I said. If you're not here for that, you can leave. They did. Slowly. Quietly. And the whispers? They didn't stop for hours. Saturday morning used to be sacred. Dad and I would meet at the rec center gym at 9 sharp. It was our thing. Half an hour of lifting, 10 minutes of cardio we never took seriously, and then a coffee at the little cafe down the street. It had been that way for years, even during the silent treatment weeks, even during the tension. So when I walked in and saw him already at the bench press, part of me wasn't surprised. He nodded when he saw me. Like everything was normal. Like he hadn't tried to reset my account password last week. Like he hadn't let Mom and Liza rip through my savings like it was community property. I dropped my bag by the lockers and walked over. Didn't think you'd show, he muttered, loading plates. Figured it was time, I said, stretching my arms. We worked in silence for a while. The usual rhythm, spotting, swapping dumbbells, wiping down benches. Except the air was tight. Heavy. Like something unsaid was pressing down on both of us. After I racked my final set, I broke the silence. You tried to break into my business account. He kept his eyes on the mirror. It was a mistake. No, it was a choice. He looked at me then. You think you're better than us now? Just because you make good money flying little toys around. I laughed once, sharp and joyless. Is that what you think I do? It's what you act like, he said. Walking around like you're some big man because you've got a drone license and a padded account. I stepped closer, voice low but direct. I bailed you out 3 times in 5 years. Paid your property taxes. Covered the HVAC repair when the furnace blew out. You know how much I've handed this family? He said nothing. $72,480, I said. I added it up. He turned back to the mirror. That's your choice. Nobody asked you to. You're right, I said. But you let me. Every time. And when I stopped, you tried to guilt me. Threaten me. You sent Mom to cry about family bonds. Liza acted like I was some villain for wanting to protect my work. He grabbed a towel off the bench. It's always about money with you. No, I snapped. It's about respect. I don't care about the cash anymore. I care that you never once said thank you. Never once asked how I was managing. You just took. He didn't argue. Didn't apologize. Just sat on the bench, towel draped over his shoulder. You're being dramatic, he muttered. You're going to regret this. I picked up my gym bag and slung it over my shoulder. You know what I regret? I said, coming here, thinking maybe we'd talk like men. I turned toward the door. Where are you going? He asked. I looked back once. Our Saturdays are over. For good. And I left him there, alone, silent, finally out of things to say. I spent the next 2 weeks combing through my bank records. Every transfer, every Venmo receipt, every email with just this once or you'll get it back. The paper trail wasn't hard to follow. I'd been too generous for too long and too meticulous to let any of it go undocumented. The spreadsheet grew quickly. Rent payments for Liza. Tuition boosts for Ivy. Medical copays for Mom. Even Dad's so-called emergency dental bill, $3,000 for a cosmetic veneer package. I added them all up. $72,480. I sat back in my chair and stared at the number. Then I sent it to my lawyer. I want a repayment demand letter, I said. Formal. Professional. I don't care if it sets the house on fire. She paused. You sure you're ready for this? I was ready the minute they stole from me and acted like I was the problem. The letter went out 3 days later. I didn't hear anything right away, but I knew better than to expect silence for long. That night, the family group chat, which I had muted months ago, lit up like a Christmas tree. Liza, what the hell is this? Mom, Vincent, you didn't mean to send this, right? This is just some kind of mistake? Dad, we don't respond to threats. If you want to act like a stranger, we'll treat you like one. Then came the calls. I didn't pick up. I watched them roll in, one after the other, each voicemail angrier than the last. The performance shifted by the hour. First shock, then outrage, then a soft, trembling voice from Mom saying, "We're just surprised you'd go this far." I let it all sit. By the next day, the ripple had started. Aunt Margie texted me, "What's going on with the family? Your mom said you're suing them? Uncle Nate, this isn't like you. They're saying you lost your mind over a dance camp." That's when I knew. The story was spreading, but it wasn't mine. So I sent the real one email. I attached the letter, the itemized debt list, and 2 screenshots. the original texts where they confessed to using my money for the festival. I sent it to the extended family group. All of them. No caption. No explanation. The chat went dead. Hours passed. Then came a new message. This time from my cousin Leo, who'd never picked sides before. Leo, just read everything. Can't believe this. Honestly, I get it. One by one, quiet names started reacting. Thumbs up. Heart emoji. A few removed themselves from the chat completely. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the sky turn purple behind the hills. For once, I wasn't angry, just still. They thought I wouldn't fight, that I'd never draw a line. But I had. And now, they'd have to live on the other side of it. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, just in feeling. The way the air echoed when you walked through the metal detector. The way everyone avoided eye contact. It was sterile, detached. And somehow, it felt perfect. I arrived early. Sat in the hallway outside courtroom 3B, laptop case on my lap, suit pressed and clean. I wasn't here to intimidate anyone. I just wanted the truth on the record. They arrived 20 minutes late. Mom, sunglasses indoors like she was shielding herself from the consequences. Dad in his old sport coat, pretending he didn't see me. Liza trailed behind them, clutching a folder and whispering furiously to someone who looked like their attorney. A thin man with too much cologne and too little tact. The bailiff called us in. I stood. They hesitated. When we sat across from each other at the long table, something hit me. This was the first time in my life they couldn't talk over me, couldn't deflect or guilt trip or twist the story. In court, you didn't win with shame. You won with evidence. And I had plenty. The judge, a stern woman with silver-rimmed glasses, glanced at the docket, then turned to me. Mr. Turner, please begin. I opened my laptop and clicked the presentation I'd prepared. First slide, a clean spreadsheet. Each row labeled with a date, an amount, a reason, and the recipient. Rent, medical, tuition, festival retreat, highlighted in yellow. At the bottom, total debt with interest, $78,120. Next slide, screenshots of the original texts from Liza and Dad. We used your reserves for the festival. She deserved it. She's exceptional. Third slide, bank statements. Withdrawals from my business account matched exactly to those amounts. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look at them. I just read calmly, clearly. When I finished, the judge nodded once and turned to their side. Their lawyer stood, adjusted his tie. Your Honor, he said, voice slick, this is a family matter. These funds were not loans. They were support, gifts. Mr. Turner cannot now demand repayment simply because he's upset with his family. He gestured toward me with a practiced frown. What we have here is an emotionally driven overreaction, an attempt to turn normal family support into financial leverage. The judge turned to him. Counselor, do you have any signed agreements that the funds were gifts? He faltered. Well, no, Your Honor, but do you have any evidence that these withdrawals were approved by Mr. Turner? Another pause. They were implied. Understood. The judge raised a hand. Implied authorization does not extend to accessing business accounts without consent. Then she turned back to me. Mr. Turner, were any of these transfers authorized in writing? No, Your Honor, I said, which is why I secured the logs, messages, and bank reports. She leaned forward slightly. And these documents clearly show the funds were taken without your consent? Yes, ma'am, and used for non-business, personal purposes. She sat back. A pause. Then, judgment in favor of the plaintiff. Full repayment with interest. And I'm referring this matter to the DA's office for review regarding unauthorized access to protected business funds. My mother gasped. Dad went stiff. Liza whispered something to the lawyer, who just shook his head. The gavel fell. It was done. Outside the courthouse, I barely made it down the steps before my phone buzzed. Mom, please, don't do this. We're family. I stared at it for a second, then hit the red button. Blocked. I walked to my car under a pale spring sun, the weight in my chest finally lifting. They'd spent their lives pulling strings behind closed doors. But in that courtroom, the truth pulled harder. The first check came on a Thursday. Certified mail, stamped and official. I didn't even open the envelope at first. I just sat at the kitchen table and stared at it. For a whole year, that account was my dream, parts, expansion, maybe even a second drone rig. They gutted it in one weekend. And now they were sending it back in pieces. I finally slit it open with a butter knife. $1,013.68. A repayment plan, just like the court ordered. Every 30 days, they'd chip away at the debt. But every check came with something else, a memory. A bruise I hadn't noticed when it first formed. Check number 2 arrived the next month. I didn't smile. I didn't feel relief. I just filed it away in a separate account I labeled restitution because justice felt too optimistic and compensation felt like charity. Check number 3 came with a letter. I almost threw it away, assuming it was more legalese. But the handwriting on the envelope stopped me. My mother's, slanted and familiar. Inside was a folded note. No greeting. No closing. Just, I didn't realize how much you'd changed until it was too late. You didn't used to be so cold. I still believe family can fix anything, but maybe I was wrong. I'm sorry if I made you feel small. That was never my intention. Mom, I read it once, then again, and for the first time in months I felt something stir. Not forgiveness, not warmth, just clarity. She still didn't get it. Sorry if I made you feel. It wasn't an apology. It was distance. It was a rewrite of history. Like I'd imagined the theft, the manipulation, the years of being used. I folded the letter neatly and slid it back into the envelope. Then I opened my laptop, emailed my lawyer, and canceled the repayment plan. I didn't want their money anymore. Not like this. Not month after month, dragging their presence back into my life. A clean break. That's what I wanted. That weekend, I deleted every contact. Mom, Dad, Liza, all blocked. No exceptions. No, just in case. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for justice or revenge. I was just done. On Sunday, I met Leo, my cousin, for coffee. He was one of the few who hadn't picked sides, who hadn't tried to guilt me into backing down. We sat at the patio table behind a little cafe downtown. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, then leaned back and said, "They're falling apart, you know. It's like the whole family can't function now that they don't have you to blame things on." I sipped my coffee and nodded. "Let them." He smiled. "You really done with all of it?" I looked out at the street, the quiet bustle of people walking, living. "Yeah," I said. "I finally am." And I meant it. I woke up to sunlight spilling across my desk, cutting through the blinds in long gold lines. The morning was quiet, no phone buzzing, no emails begging for money, no guilt texts waiting to be ignored. Just peace. I rolled out of bed, stretched, and walked barefoot across the hardwood to my small workbench by the window. 3 drone prototypes sat there, lined up like soldiers, each with a different mod, each one a product of long nights and stubborn hands. I ran a finger across the carbon fiber of the newest build. Sleek, solid, mine. I brewed coffee while my laptop powered on. The homepage of my business website had a new banner. Now accepting private contracts for long-range surveying. Underneath was a simple phrase I'd added last night. Independent. Insured. Boundaries included. It made me smile. I sipped slowly as I scrolled through my messages, only 3, all from clients. All business. No one asking for a bailout. No one hinting at family loyalty. Just work. The fridge hummed softly. A breeze pushed against the open window. I glanced at my phone, still clean. No new calls. No surprises. No demands. A quiet life. For the first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Around 9, I packed up the drone rig and loaded it into the back of my Jeep. I had a contract an hour out, just a property scan, nothing fancy, but it paid well. And more importantly, I wanted to go. There was no more voice in the back of my head saying, should I check on them? Should I text back? Should I give in just one more time? That voice was gone. They were gone. And I was still here. As I pulled out of the driveway, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. No anger. No tension in my jaw. Just a man behind the wheel of his own life. Halfway down the road, my phone buzzed. A notification from the calendar app. Reminder, family barbecue, 11:30 a.m. I smiled and swiped it away. Not my family anymore. I turned up the music. Something wordless and loud, the kind of track that fills your chest and drowns out the past. The road was open. The sky was clear. My silence wasn't punishment. It was freedom. And for the first time in my life, I didn't miss the noise.